Steelers fans, you could win a trip to Super Bowl 55 and a new 2021 F-150. The official truck of the Pittsburgh Steelers, sponsored by Neighborhood Ford Store. Rules and regulations are on the entry page, and remember, this contest is a twofer. Scroll down the page after you voted for the super fan of your choice and enter to win that truck. Visit FordHallOfFans.com/football.
And welcome back. 412-575-2600 on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. That's where you can call us. Also, you can tweet me at Josh Taylor HD. Josh Taylor, Paul Zeise. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call powered by FanDuel Sportsbook. We got a lot to talk about. We can talk Penguins. We can talk Steelers. We can talk college hoops. Duquesne and Robert Morris played tonight. We might get to that later on. We will start with Kathy and Derry. Kathy, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Josh and Paul. Thank you for taking my call. I was just concerned about Ben. You know, I thought for sure last Sunday the Steelers were going to win that game with the Browns because Ben wasn't playing. And then, you know, they didn't win. And then this Sunday I thought they'd win because Ben was back, and they didn't win. But I don't know. He said that he was on TV the other night, and he said he'll come back if the Steelers will have him back. But I'm thinking, you know, he can't run anymore, and he can't really throw. Well, he throws to the other team's players sometimes, it looks like. But since he hurt that shoulder, he can't really throw anymore. So I'll hang up and see, you know, what your input, you guys' input are.
Kathy, I think you have a lot of sentiment you have the same sentiment of a lot of people in town. There are so many different factors that factor into this. And Paul, correct me if I'm wrong here. 38 years old, Ben Roethlisberger. He's been doing this almost 2 decades, and the elbow surgery is something that sticks out. The other thing that sticks out that I think a lot of people can't seem to get past, it's that number. It's 41. That's how many millions of dollars he would count against the cap next year if he stays. And that is the number where a lot of people see that and they just pause because they're worrying and they're wondering if that 41 with the 6 zeros behind it is worth putting up with next year, Paul.
Well, and I think the other thing about it is the team is probably going through some changes. If you're going to have a new offensive coordinator, I think it's difficult to ask a veteran, quarterback, probably in his last year to, learn a whole new offense and adapt to somebody else. So I don't know. I look at Ben and I say basically the Steelers need to somehow make the tough decision to move on from him. I know that there are some people who think the Steelers are going to go 2-14 for the next 10 years after Ben retires, and that's just not the case. They're a good organization.
They went 8-8 without
They know how to win. They know how to win. They know how to do the right things. What they need to do in terms of rebuilding, they're going to be fine. Obviously, they're not. It's not easy to win a Super Bowl, but it isn't exactly like they've won a Super Bowl with Ben the last 10 or 11 years. So to me, you take away Ben, you save $19.5 million on your cap next year, and that helps you do a couple of things that you might need to do in order to make yourself better. That's where I would go.
And that's kind of how I feel about it. I just feel like there is no way you can take that $41 million cap hit and make the rest of this work, because you're talking about a bunch of unrestricted free agents, 18 of them, and a handful of them are on defense. One is Cam Sutton, whom you need. One is Mike Hilton, whom you really need. One is Tyson Alualu, whom when the running game is a factor, you need him too. And that's not counting the fact TJ Watt's entering the last year of his deal. You're going to want to pay him to stick around. And if there's a possibility you can try to keep Bud Dupree, whether it's franchise tag or otherwise, that becomes an issue too. All those things add up, and you wonder, can you keep the quality of team that you want to have with Ben while keeping him here? And there's really only 2 options that you have. You either bring him back and bite that bullet for $41 million, or if you want to keep him around and try to make things better, you're going to have to extend him and push some of that money down the road, and that might make people even more uncomfortable. Let's go to John in Banksville. John, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you, John?
Good. A couple of thoughts I have in the first 2 Penguin games. Wondered what you thought. Number one, Chris Letang continues to have difficulty in determining which team he's supposed to give the puck to. And number 2, the absence of Hornquist is sticking out like a sore thumb already, particularly on the power play. They're back to skating around in circles with nobody going to the net. That's what they did before they got him, and that's what they're doing now. And it's going to be a long year if if they don't fix some of these things. Goaltending, I think, will come around, but these are like basic kind of things they got to try to fix. Get your thoughts on that.
Thanks for the call, John. John points out a really important point, Paul. He talked about Patrick Hornquist being that net front presence on the power play. Philadelphia got a guy back who's really good at that. James Van Riemsdyk. James Van Riemsdyk is so good at sitting in front of the net on the power play, they call those kind of goals James Van Riemsdyk goals or JVR goals. Just like we used to call those Patrick Hornquist goals in front of the net, Hornquist goals. That's the guy that they have, and he makes an impact in front of that net on the power play. From that perspective alone, I agree with John. I also agree with John with the goaltending probably evening out if the defensive situation probably gets a little bit better, especially with the guys up front. The forecheck and the back check has to be better. But, Paul, as far as the giveaways are concerned, I'm not holding Chris Letang solely responsible. There were a few other guys that were giving away too tonight.
Right, but he was on the ice, I think, for all 5 of the goals.
True.
And that's not exactly a good look when you're the highest paid defenseman on the team. One of the things that I think is probably never going to happen, Josh, but maybe you think about it. Is there ever a time that Chris Letang gets held accountable and gets knocked down to the second or third pairing just for a game or two?
I'd be stunned if it happened, honestly.
Why does he always automatically have to be on the top pairing?
And playing a lot of minutes, too. Playing a lot of minutes.
You know what I mean? Exactly. That's my point. Is it because he, makes so much money? Is it because he's one of your stars from – see, to me, again, this kind of segues into the Ben Roethlisberger decision. What have you done for me lately? And to me, he has had too many bad games recently, and of course that recently is a relative term because they only played 4 games over the last 10 months or whatever. But I just feel like he's a guy that they've got to do a better job of trying to hold accountable because he makes too many mistakes for a guy who makes that much money.
All good points that are well said. We want to talk a little bit about college football here. We talked about the Steelers coaching staff, but our Tri-State Furniture tweet of the night, little Pitt coaching staff tweet. It comes from your colleague, Mike White, Paul Zeise from the Post-Gazette. Chirp, 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 chirp. I don't do bird noise as well, so just follow me here. Why is that little birdie on my porch roof? The birdie says, highly successful Pine Richland coach Eric Kasparovich recently interviewed for the Pitt linebackers coach position, but Kasparovich didn't get the job. Former Pitt guy, by the way, former Pitt defensive back, really good coach in Pine Richland. Paul, Eric Kasparovich on this Pitt staff, would you have pulled the trigger on that?
Yep. I think that's exactly what this staff needs. They need a guy who understands and knows the local landscape, who's very well liked around the area. He checks the box of a former Pitt player, so he's somebody who can actually sell the university. One of the things that they've had a problem with is locally, they've had some issues with some high schools. They haven't been very well received because the recruiting coach in the area just really wasn't very good at building bridges and things of the such. So I would have thought this would have been a home run, slam dunk, whatever you want to say. But, a number of years ago, they had a chance to hire Terry Smith, the Gateway coach, and they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction. And to me, I thought that was a mistake. So, but what do I know?
I was going to bring up Terry Smith because I was going to say it's working for a school a couple miles or a couple hours down the road there. They went and got a Penn State guy who's a local guy, and he's actually been pretty good with pulling some local recruits in that direction. Granted, it hasn't been as strong recently, but when he first got there, Terry Smith was doing the job like gangbusters, and that's something that you need if you're going to recruit in this region. I think you're absolutely right. We got to take a break. We will talk a little bit more when we come back. Stick around.